time dial 10 minutes gone past 5 p.m. Complement of the season. Discussions continue at this time. Next up, we're discussing the Nigeria Bar Association and human rights violations in Nigeria. What roles has the NBA played in fighting against that, or bringing it to an end for that matter, is what's next on the conversation at this time. But the NBA itself appears to be scoring itself high in the fight against human rights violations. On a story on the news earlier on today, the Nigerian Bar Association chairman, Port Harcourt branch, Prince Nyekere, says the organization has done its best in fighting human rights violations. Mr. Nyekere said this while reviewing how human rights abuses in the state have been fought within the last year. Let's take a listen to what Prince Nyekere had to say on the subject matter of the NBA's efforts at fighting human rights abuses in the country.
Within the circumstances of the environment that we operate, I think NBA has done well. We've been vocal in condemning infractions on human rights. We've been vocal in condemning what we see as not in accord with the rule of law. NBA does not have coercive power. Even in some areas, we have gone to court to challenge some of these infractions. By and large, NBA have been able to do what we are supposed to do, which is promoting the rule of law.
I heard to our correspondent that the major violator of human rights is the executive arm of government, especially the police.
The major violators of human rights is actually the executive, and police is part of that executive. Yes, we have pockets of individual violating human rights, but it is the police and the executive arm that are majorly the culprits of violation of human rights, because in the course of carrying out their duties, they overstep their bounds. So those are the areas we encounter challenges.
No, absolutely. So once again, the NBA seems to be scoring itself high as far as efforts to fight human rights abuses in the country is concerned. However, is that really the situation? Is that a true reflection of what is happening in the country? How has the NBA fared in fighting human rights violations? These and other related matters we'll take a look at in this hour. My guest who's joined me for this conversation is a lawyer himself. He's also a legal advisor for the Committee for the Defense of Human Rights, Henry Ekine. Henry, good evening to you. You're welcome to the show.
Good evening, Dayo, and thank you for having me.
Let's start first off with the NBA itself, the Nigeria Bar Association. What purpose does the NBA serve? What is the mandate of the NBA?
The Nigerian Bar Association is an association of legal practitioners in Nigeria. I mean, with emphasis, that is, lawyers called to the bar and enrolled in the Supreme Court, and then primarily with a mandate for the welfare of members for the legal profession, and of course, legal practitioners, because it does not really include those who have ascended to the bench. But again, as a professional organization, of course, we also extend the interests of citizens in the country, especially when it comes to the areas of law and human rights, and of course, rule of law and good governance. Those constitute the objectives of the Nigerian Bar Association.
Let's talk about your choice of the word influence. To what extent can the Nigeria Bar Association influence, really?
Yes, the Nigerian Bar Association can at best be classified maybe as a pressure group when it comes to issues of policy and law, and of course enforcement of laws as well. except in particular cases where, as an incorporated body, the incorporated trustees of the Nigerian Bar Association can constitute or rather commence legal actions for the protection of rights of members, or of course even other citizens, and then can also be sued as an entity. Otherwise, generally, it's about influencing policy directions and, of course, lawmaking, and like other organizations, they have persuasive effect, really, as a pressure group.
In other words, would I be right to say, or would anyone be right to say, that the NBA really doesn't have any mechanisms at its disposal that can definitively be effective in the fight against human rights abuses in the country?
Oh, it does. As I just mentioned, as an incorporated body, the Nigerian Bar Association, like every other association, pursuant to the Fundamental Rights Enforcement Procedure rules of 2009, can be an interested party. Can take out probably public interest actions, or even actions in respect to the protection of rights of particular citizens or organizations or individuals. So they can. Again, as a professional organization too, it can protect the rights of citizens, of members of the association. Of course, even take out actions, public interest actions against some laws or policies of government that affect the legal profession, without really being the spokesperson of the NBA here.
Now, you said that the NBA can help in protecting public interest through some actions. It could also protect the rights of members. Let's start with members for a moment. We'll get to the public part of this conversation in a moment. Now, there are numerous cases or instances of members of the NBA, lawyers, I believe, being harassed, being made to undertake or go through, unbelievable, irregular, abnormal processes, sometimes even downright criminal and illegal processes by officers of the Nigeria Police Force. Lawyers know this. The NBA knows this. How come these actions or these activities still persist? And I'm going to give an example here. For example, you go to a police station, you're told bail is free. You have a huge signpost indicating bail is free. And lawyers, members of the Nigeria Bar Association, are being compelled, made by police officers, to even not just advise their clients to pay bail, which is illegal, but are even involved in negotiating the amount that is due to be paid. The lawyers know this. If the lawyers know that, I imagine that the NBA should know this as well. So how come this is still going on? Is the NBA forgetting its responsibilities of also, amongst other things, protecting the rights of its own members, let alone the rights of other citizens?
Yes, this is a complex one, because personally being a member of the Nigerian Bar Association, particularly in the Port Harcourt branch, and being a legal practitioner, but I think in this context I shall be speaking as the National Legal Advisor of a human rights organization, the Committee for the Defense of Human Rights. And so I have concern not just about the protection of rights of lawyers and then members of the NBA, but of course of citizens. And then the expected role that lawyers and then the NBA may play in this regard, and then the expectation of citizenry. I think on a general note, just as we are worried about the rate of rights abuses, and of course the indolence of the institutions that are expected to protect the rights of citizens, the national institution being the National Human Rights Commission, and then other civil society organizations and human rights organizations, but particularly the Nigerian Bar Association. I think that there's so much more that is expected of these institutions of government, and of course civil society organizations and human rights organizations, not excluding the Nigerian Bar Association as a professional agency, a professional association. To that extent, I would say that yes, the NBA may have done its best, but so much more is needed to be done and expected to be done. And in what regard? Let's begin with even welfare and rights of members of the NBA, without really being anyway indicting of the NBA. But lawyers can agree that there is a whole lot of the violation of rights of lawyers, or interests of lawyers, or welfare of lawyers virtually everywhere. You just raised some examples. Maybe what lawyers are challenged with, interfacing with the police on behalf of clients, and then perhaps again too, what lawyers are challenged with, even in their own process in the court, where it's actually supposed to be their own jurisdiction, really. There are situations where rights of lawyers in their professional, because of their professional duties, being affected by their experiences in the judiciary, and then in society generally. How protective has the NBA been to the interests of lawyers? Yes, there are instances where the NBA has spoken out. There are instances where the NBA may have stood for some lawyers, but because of the massive violation of rights of lawyers in this regard, being members of the NBA, I think there is a whole lot more that is expected of the NBA. And then coming around to even the larger society, a lot of Nigerians have their expectations from lawyers, especially as ministers in the Temple of Justice and as social engineers. They expect that a lot of the happenings in society would have been more like condemned and spoken against more loudly by the NBA. And that's why most times when some of these things happen, you see that rather than turn to other professional organizations, you would see that society and the citizens will respond to how NBA has either acted effectively or otherwise. So I think the NBA has a serious role in ensuring that there's respect to rule of law, respect to rights of citizens, respect to, in fact, everything really about human rights. I mean, respect to human rights of citizens.
So if the perspective out there, or the perception is that the NBA can do more, the NBA can shout more, the NBA can wade more, the NBA can, well, do a lot more, summarily, what then is holding the NBA back? What are the challenges? What is preventing the NBA from attaining its full potentials in the fight against human rights abuses in the country?
Yes, the NBA I describe is an association. So just as other civil society organizations and professional bodies and stations may be confronted with this, the inadequacies in our systems, the judicial system, the criminal justice system, and the legal system even. These challenges also confront the NBA. Otherwise, there have been enormous efforts by the NBA to focus on the promotion of rights of citizens, to the extent that usually the vice president of the NBA chairs a human rights committee in the NBA. So that shows clearly the interest and the directive principle, of course, of the NBA in terms of protection of rights of citizens. That I know. And then there are also programs and efforts, enlightenment education that the NBA may be carrying out from time to time for towards the promotion of rights of citizens. But the challenges, let's take for instance the police. I'm not sure that the NBA has stood firmly enough in the protection of members of the profession in terms of their experiences and even direct abuses and violation of rights of lawyers at the police stations, even when they go for the protection of rights of other citizens. So that's one area that I think the NBA needs to do more. And then what's that challenge to the NBA in doing this? It's the same system, the same impunity, the same corruption, and then that affects also members of the NBA, including my colleagues, the lawyers. We're humans, we're in the same society. But particularly of those security agencies or authorities that we confront from time to time. And then moving away from that, there are even challenges from the judicial system itself. Even our own members of the judiciary. I tell you what, I had a cause to draw the attention of a senior colleague, and I said, Elder, there's something that's really disturbing. You file an application for an order of court, or a ruling of the court, or a judgment of the court, and by the process of that application, you may have paid a fee if you go through the writ committee process, but when that application has been approved and you go to the registry, this is one thing we just all keep quiet, but we all participate in it. Is that we're encouraging it or we are violating the rights of citizens to have access to these proceedings, to have access, unhindered access to these rulings and orders. But what happens in real sense? You apply for these things, you pay the charges, the fees that's best that you could know, and perhaps you would expect that these documents may be accessed maybe by basis of pages and folio and all of that, and that should be an official fee that you pay. But you go to the registry, that's within our system, within the court system. You go to the the registry, and you either will be prevented from getting it, not deliberately, but by reason of probably not meeting up to pay a certain amount of money. What is the NBA doing? Don't they know? Don't they know that in a way it affects the right, it infringes on the rights of those litigants, those parties, and of course of their own colleagues as lawyers? Because sometimes lawyers could even be litigants and parties themselves in actions, and then in all cases they're either representing some other parties and who are citizens. These are actually also areas that rights of citizens, because you have a right really to freely access those records of proceedings. And is it a challenge? Yes, it's a challenge. How do we address that? Have we actually asked for this to stop? How much has the NBA done that as a collective so that you don't have a situation where one lawyer is doing this? Some of us are actually really not much afraid of saying these things because these are the challenges we have in this society. I apply for the same. I go to the registry to take a ruling, and then you tell me you negotiate, say you must pay this. Sometimes very disturbing. I find myself unable to move the next step because it's so uncomfortable for me to do that kind of compromise. But you find out then your client wants to do it, and your client needs the order. Sometimes I leave them and say, if you want to go, you go and negotiate it. And then you go to the police station, the same thing. The lawyer is required by all the law to represent the suspect at the police station. How much have we taken steps to ensure that this is done in protection of both the right of that suspect as a citizen and, of course, the right of your own members, lawyers, if so engaged by the suspect, to be there? I don't want you lawyers going away. How do we do these things?
Henry,
But
could
there
you
are challenges to also the NBA as well.
hold that thought, please? A commercial break right now, and we've got headlines 5:30 p.m. A conversation continues afterwards as to the NBA's alleged fight against civil rights abuses in the country. When we return, please stay with us.
Headline News, Nigeria Info on
92.3.
Headline News.
Hello and welcome. Here are the headlines. Interstate drivers blame police extortion, a poor state of roads, others for fresh hike in cost of transportation ahead of New Year celebration. Rivers State Civil Society Organization to intensify voter sensitization in 2022 political year. Federal government says insecurity was biggest challenge of 2021. And family of late student of Dowan College of Vest ceremony accused police of hoarding his second autopsy results. Court of Appeal in Abuja locks out workers for late coming. On the foreign scene, mourners bid final goodbyes to Archbishop Desmond Tutu as he lies in state in South Africa. In business, Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission (FCCPC) set to tackle violation of consumer rights in e-money lending industry. In entertainment, Nollywood actress Mercy Johnson Okoje celebrates her daughter Purity, who clocked 9 years old today. And in sports, striker Victor Osimhen tests positive for coronavirus 10 days to Africa Cup of Nations in Cameroon. Those are the headlines. Details at 6 p.m. Thanks for listening. I'm Adedayo Elusakin. Good evening.
Information is a two-way thing. Nigeria Info, it's your turn. Let's talk.
And now, Hard Facts.
Hard Facts with Dio.
Welcome back to Hard Factor 90.3 Nigeria Info and here in Port Harcourt. I'm Dio. 27 minutes to go before 6 p.m. We've got the major news up at 6 p.m. Discussions continue with open season after that till about 7 o'clock. For the moment, Nigeria Bar Association Port Harcourt branch chairman Prince Ndikwere says the organization has done its best in fighting human rights violations. The question is that really the case, or can a lot more be done? If it's not living up to expectations, what more can be done, or can it do, or should it be doing? These and other related matters we're still discussing right now. My guest is a lawyer himself once again. Henry Ekine is legal advisor with Committee for the Defense of Human Rights. Henry, welcome back.
Thank you, Dio, for having me back.
So you identified the mandate of the NBA just a while ago. You described even challenges faced by citizens and even especially lawyers, members of the NBA. The NBA's mandate includes protecting the rights of its members, lawyers, and the members of the NBA are faced with horrendous situations. You described your experiences as well with getting some court processes done, even after having paid what the fees that are required by law or by set down procedures and processes. You are still being extorted by members of the judicial system, and your members or your colleagues and peers are very much and seniors are aware of this situation, yet it persists. Now the question is, as you rightly observed a while ago, when there are infractions in society, not just that happens with individuals, as very often does, but even matters that are on a somewhat bigger scale, you find that there's included in the public outcry is, where is the NBA? Why is the NBA not addressing this? What is the NBA saying about this? Why is the NBA not doing enough or anything at all to address this? And my question is, are citizens expecting or attributing too much to the NBA? Does the NBA have that problem that the citizens expect so much or maybe even too much from the NBA?
The NBA may be overwhelmed with the enormity of the expectation of citizens. If there is one professional association that citizens have recourse to and have reason to call on in most of their experiences daily would be the NBA. Comparatively, the NBA stands in a position that will respond to the interests and rights of citizens virtually every day. Because it is either you are a party in an action or you are expecting the laws to be upheld by some state agent, and then when they are violated, you run to the member of the NBA, maybe an individual legal practitioner, or you expect the NBA as a body to take a position. And I mentioned earlier that the NBA is generally perceived as social engineers to influencing society for maybe better society, respect for laws, for the promotion of the rule of law is one of the cardinal objectives of the NBA, and then, of course, for the defense of rights of citizens. So I think that, yes, in some regard they may, but I do not think that the excuse for probably not doing the much. I stand and I remain on my position that a lot more is expected of the NBA to do, to speak out for the defense of members of the bar, and then, of course, for the protection of rights of citizens. And we seem not to have, we perceive that not much has been done, even in the primary constituency of the NBA, that is amongst lawyers. There are a whole lot of lawyers, members of the bar, legal practitioners, whose rights are being violated every day. The experiences may differ in different regards. And I think that, like Ekine mentioned, do we just look at those who are prominent, maybe prominent lawyers or members of the bench? Yes, we'll probably have a moral consideration or situation, really, to protect also members of the bench. And then we issue statements and press releases, the NBA national president, or in some cases the branches when probably a judge is being, yes, we should protect them. But the same way, every other member of the bar and then every other citizen of this country deserves that same equal protection of rights of citizens or members of the bar. I do not think that we should really constitute a situation where we have some class of lawyers or class of members of society. So the NBA may also have its own internal challenges, no doubt. But the good thing is that the Fundamental Rights Enforcement Procedure Rule 2009 does not recognize the issue of local standard, whether you have an interest in a matter directly, but provided it is an issue that's got to do with the rights of a citizen. Any person and any association or any organization can commence that action. So we expect to see more of public interest or actions filed by the NBA, like other civil society organizations or human rights organizations that may almost overshadow the NBA in this regard. So for me, it's not quite an issue of even undermining the efforts of the NBA, but trying to bring the NBA to that pivotal position that they ought to occupy above any other civil society organization in this country or any other human rights organization in terms of public interest actions and the protection of rights of citizens, enforcing and ensuring that government and public office holders, politicians, state actors, and those almost general perpetrators of violation of rights of citizens are actually caused to some check in some way. That will be when you have a very vibrant, a very determined Nigerian Bar Association, and a very active one in that regard, in terms of being present at all times. Institute those actions.
So Henry,
policies, yes.
So Henry, it appears the NBA can do a lot more. It seems we are agreed on that. So the question is, what should the NBA be doing that it is not already doing?
That is not clearly a case of identifying a new thing that the NBA needs or ought to do that they aren't doing. But I think it's more of a case of doing little of actually the things that they really have the mandate to do. We've identified here that the NBA has a primary mandate to protect the welfare of members. But where you have isolation of interests of members that are being protected, then we wouldn't say they aren't doing something in that insignificant level in that regard, but they need to do more. Even in terms of speaking out to the promotion of rights of citizens, I even said earlier that the NBA has a committee for human rights, which is headed by the chair, the the vice chairman at the state level. And that means it's an effort. So it's not like they aren't doing any of those things they are probably mandated to do or they have in the objectives in the Constitution to do. But I think it's a call for them to do much more, really. We've had situations where the NBA has intervened, even together with us, with the Committee of the Defense of Human Rights, in protecting the rights of citizens. We have some cases that we've been taken out almost together in this state. We have programs for human rights education and awareness that, of course, the NBA would always partner with the CDHR. We've never had a program at the CDHR that we have held in this state for the promotion of rights of citizens, including the International Human Rights Day we just had in December. They were always there. They would always send a delegation. But we need much more of that presence of the NBA. I think that's, for me, the position, really.
Join the conversation right now, if you will. The lines are open. 0817 923 0002, 0817 923 0003, and 0817 923 0007. Those are the numbers to call. WhatsApp on 0809 030 6416. We may be live on Facebook. Also visit facebook.com/Nigeria Info PH to drop a comment there on as well. I will get to them as soon as I possibly can. Let's get your take on the roles the NBA has played so far or can play going forward in a bid to fight human rights abuses in the country. Very nice now. Hello, Hard Fact, you're welcome.
Hello, good evening, Daniel.
Hi, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Jim Michael. I want to contribute on the matter on ground concerning the NBA. For my own opinion, I think they really try their best. Because I had a case that I clubbed in NBA office, and they were able to assist me when it gets to the angle of the police. So that's where the matter is now. As I talk to you now, the matter didn't go anywhere. But
what did the NBA do exactly?
Okay, they wrote to Amadi police station. So they take their arrest for the person that gave me to collect money from me.
All right, once again, call 0817 923 0002, 0817 923 0003, 0817 923 0007 are the numbers to call. I remind you can join the conversation via WhatsApp as well on 0809 030 6416. Okay, now as we wait those contributions, okay, I think I have another call coming in. Hello, Hard Fact, you're welcome.
Yeah, hello, Dayo. It's John Michael.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the NBA write to the Amadi Police Division for them to effect the arrest. So they even wrote to the DPO. So when I took the letter, the DPO directed me to one man, like one policeman. So I met the man. The man, they said, I need to present 50,000 before they can effect the arrest. So I was taking it as a joke. So I demand to see the DPO. So the day I went to see the DPO, he was asking me what the other man told me, the other police officer. As I look at what he said, he was even angry. So they cannot use their legs to go and handle my matter, that if I'm not ready to bring out the money, I should vacate his office. He was even chasing me out of his office before, and the lawyer had to call me that they need to change to another police division. So I think on their own, the NBA, they try their best, but their effort is being quenched by the police officer. That's my own opinion.
All right, Henry, back to you now. Is the NBA at the mercy of the police and some of the other systemic problems that we have? Because once again, you talk about the mandate of the NBA, protect the rights primarily of its members, also advocate the interests of citizens as well. But you find that even the members of the NBA, the lawyers, are themselves become victims in many instances. for example, as with when they interact with the police, are members of the NBA themselves victims, and are they suppressed? Is it that the system is so bad and there's nothing the NBA can do? The NBA simply has to just live with it and try to work through, around, or even with the forty system as well.
Well, the NBA, it would be unfortunate if the NBA would consider themselves or excuse themselves as itself here as being at the mercy of any agency or any institution of state at all, or any individual, let alone the security agencies. It would be unfortunate. It would be a threat to even the expectation of citizens as to the protection of their rights. No matter, notwithstanding the challenges, I agree. I was listening to the caller. Those are daily challenges, really, and much more. Even the members of the bar being victims themselves directly. That really is the situation. But I do not think that will justify any feeling by the NBA as being at the mercy of any organization or any institution at that. That would be yourself probably undermining your own power or your own authority or even the mandate that you have given to you by members. Now, how should this work? There have been times when we're growing up when indeed the NBA speaks against a position, even the government. I must say this, not particularly to any branch of the NBA or any executive committee of the NBA or even the current national executive committee of the NBA, but there were days and of course times in the past that when the NBA takes a position and then the NBA particularly is in opposition to the position of a state, even the government of that state or the government of that country will be wary about any other step they will take in that position, especially when it's in respect to upholding the rule of law or abuse of rights of citizens. So when you rather have a situation where the NBA has become perceivably indolent, perceivably weak, perceivably submissive to even some executive excesses, or perceivably subservient to even some institutions, including security agencies, then you really have a problem. You really do have a problem. And I think that my association, which is the one I belong, the NBA, and the executive members of the NBA should rather take this as a charge to say, look, we need to go back to the days that the NBA was really, truly respected, even in terms of contributing to lawmaking, contributing to policy formulation, and ensuring in one way or the other that we have an influence in the direction that policies actually are made.
And Henry, do please hold the thought. I do have to take a call right now. Hello, hard fact to welcome.
Hello, Dio. Good evening.
Hi, go ahead.
Yeah. Sometimes when the lawyers come to say the client forced them to negotiate their bail with the police, I find it very hard to understand it. Why am I saying this? Because even lawyers themselves, when they fall victim, they also negotiate the bail for themselves. I listened to a lawyer on a radio, one of the radio stations in Port Harcourt this morning, to be precise, today FM. He talked about how his house was raided and, a compound where they are living with some other tenants. The police came there and then arrested all of them living there, that they were fraudsters and so on and so forth, and they were detained. And they ended up, after he has contacted the NBA chairman, River State chapter, they ended up bailing them with 400,000. He was on air saying this. And then I asked, what is the hope of the ordinary Nigerian? So for me, we are in a situation where it appears is so hopeless that if the lawyers will negotiate their own bail at the police station and then help to negotiate bail for their client at the police station, they shouldn't be claiming that it was the fault of their client. It's the normal thing as far as Nigeria today is concerned. Thank you very much.
Henry, your thoughts on that?
Yes, very correct. That's the point I was making. That it's be unfortunate, really, that we get to that point where the NPA or even members, that is lawyers, find or perceive themselves to be at the mercy of those institutions and those experiences. Not attempting here to elevate the CDHR, the Committee for the Defense of Human Rights, above any other organization. But I say one thing, in other states, and including River States, but I would say here that we don't seem to be as strong as we are in other states. I'm a national officer. In Delta, in Lagos, in Katsina, in Kaduna, the CDHR would rather retrieve money that citizens may have been extorted by police officers. That happens in Delta. If you are possible for it with my colleagues, my comrades in Delta, they will tell you how much money they recover probably every week. So you could find a human rights organization to that extent where citizens will go to and they've been extorted, probably in the name of negotiating and buying their liberty, their freedom, paying for bail. And that human rights organization will rather go to that station, get to the commissioner of police, get to the DPO, and ensure that money is returned. Whoever is involved, they will make sure that that particular police officer that extorted them, if has stole that money, or that is stealing, it's an offense to take money from any citizen in the guise of bail. I have always said that sometimes security agencies may pretend that they are protecting citizens, or also pretend that they are enforcing the laws, but they are committing crimes themselves. You take a situation where torture has been criminalized. So with the police officer who will pretend or assume that is effecting arrest, torture a citizen who say he's not committing a crime, then now you would pretend that you are discussing granting someone bail that is entitled to as a right in our constitution. But you're asking him to go pay 400,000, 1 million naira, 800,000, and relatives will be negotiating. I agree with the caller that lawyers negotiate. I cannot name states. These are my colleagues. Lawyers negotiate. Thank God it's a caller that's saying someone said this on radio. Without pretending to be best as a lawyer. But if I get to that stage, I tell you, practically maybe you will ask, so what would you do? You're a lawyer. You get involved in this situation as well. I will tell my clients, I have talked with the DPO. I have talked with the IPO. They have agreed to grant you bail. If they are raising anything about money, they can't negotiate bail with me. Go and if you want to, if you agree, but I will tell you, you don't have to pay. Allow your relative to be there. But you know what? Because they are restive. But that will not justify why a lawyer should submit to negotiating for bail money to get your client out of custody. If you approach the DPO or the IPO or the DCO and they refuse to grant him bail, what happens to the application to the DPO for bail? You do that and he refuses. What happens to the application to the magistrate? What happens to a bail application for the court to admit your client to bail? But because you don't want to be patient, or maybe the lawyer wants to be patient, but the client is probably very restive. But what is the lawyer tends to do? You are enjoined to advise your client candidly within the purview of the law. So you cannot advise your clients to pervert law, to pervert the justice. But what I wouldn't really say, I think there's also one challenge to the NBA, frankly. But I'm not sure that the NBA will advise or
I seem to have lost connection with my guest, Henry Ekine. I suppose we might be wrapping up the conversation on this note anyways. Many thanks for being a part of it. Thanks to my guest as well. Henry Ekine is a lawyer. He is a legal advisor with the Committee for the Defense of Human Rights as well. He's joined the conversation on whether or not the NBA has done enough, is doing enough to fight against human rights abuses, which is a very common feature in our society, even by state actors, especially so-called gallant friends in the Nigeria police force. Commercial break now. We've got the major news coming up top of the hour at 6 p.m. Opening season is up after that. Do please stay with us.